Greetings. I'm art critic Dyan Cyan, and I'm here in Professor Fun's Secret File archive to discuss abstract art. For thousands of years, artists in the West created paintings with subjects the viewer could recognize. These works included portraits, landscapes, scenes of city life, and religious scenes, though they could vary widely in style and mood. But during the early 1900s, painters began to allow brushstrokes, color, and shapes to influence the appearance of subject matter. For these artists, the way their pictures were constructed was more important than subject matter. The first abstract art was produced by painters identified with several art movements, including Cubism and Expressionism in Europe. Their paintings were called abstract, though subject matter could still be recognized in their work. After about 1910, some artists eliminated all subject matter in favor of pure forms. Even though paintings had no identifiable subject matter, the painters still believed their pictures had meaning. The Russian painter Casimir Malevich became a leader of abstract painting. Malevich focused on the square as the ideal form to free art from what he believed was the burden of the objective world. His paintings assemble squares together to create floating images. In one painting, a black rectangle is placed over a red rectangle. Malevich believed such shapes replaced the commonplace objects of the everyday world to form an artistic blueprint for an ideal world. The Dutch painter Piet Mondrian painted simplified compositions made up of rectangles and straight lines. He used such basic colors as red, blue, and yellow. Mondrian said that paintings should not be windows to another world. Instead, they were physical objects subject to the same design principles as a house or a chair. One of the most famous movements in abstract became known as abstract expressionism, which developed during the mid-1940s in the United States. The abstract expressionists rejected many of the customs and rules of earlier art. They did not paint traditional pictures that told a story or created the appearance of reality. Instead, the abstract expressionists emphasized color and the physical qualities of paint, for example, as expressed in thick brushstrokes. The abstract expressionists also emphasized extremely large paintings that seemed to dominate the viewer. The abstract expressionist movement was more a philosophical attitude than a single style. For example, certain abstract expressionist works feature many shapes and thick paint, while others are simple and thinly painted. Some painters deliberately left portions of the canvas unpainted to provide a contrast with the painted areas. The most famous American abstract expressionist painter was Jackson Pollock, who created his most important work between 1947 and 1952. Instead of using a traditional easel, Pollock tacked his canvases onto the floor. He worked from all sides, applying the paint from a can or using brushes, sticks, and turkey basters. Sometimes he even stepped onto the canvas itself. These paintings had no subject matter. They consisted of webs of poured lines and drips made from oil paint, commercial enamels, and aluminum paint. He sometimes added other materials, such as sand or broken glass. The result was weeping, rhythmic patterns of lines that seemed to weave across the surface with great energy or delicacy. The lines formed by the fluid reflect the movements of the artist's arm as he dripped the paint onto the canvas. The character of each of Pollock's drip paintings differs in their patterns, rhythms, and textures. Pollock wrote, "When I am in my painting, I am not aware of what I am doing. The painting has a life of its own." This statement supports the idea that Pollock's paintings came from his subconscious mind, with little regard for usual artistic standards that emphasize such elements as composition, color, or drawing. Pollock numbered many of his paintings, but seldom gave them titles. He believed titles distracted the viewer by suggesting ideas or subject matter not intended by the artist.